Welcome back, folks. Professor Almeida here, and in this video I want to walk you through the Excel 1 project in COSA 50. Coming up, you're going to learn how to work with spreadsheets or worksheets as they're called in the world of Microsoft. And since we are in the back half of COSA 50, I just want to take a moment to remind you of your support options. Check out the syllabus for the different ways of getting support, especially if you don't have access to a Windows machine. Speaking of Windows, I'm going to go ahead and fire up my virtual machine here. And while I'm getting all set up, now would be a good time for you to get into Canvas along with Cengage and MindTap. So I'll be right back and I'll see you on the other side. All right, so as before, you have access to the full ebook. Chapter 1 is on creating a worksheet and a chart. Here are your objectives. So by the end of Excel Module 1, you should be able to master these concepts. And you'll notice that there's quite a bit of terminology that we have to unpack here. Some of this you've seen before in the course when we were going over technology for success, and we'll revisit some of those terms. And here is chapter 1, Excel 1 project. Hopefully by now you know how all of this works. We'll go ahead and start. And we just need the instruction file and the start file. As you can see, I already have my files downloaded. I've made a copy of my start file. And at this point, we can go ahead and begin the project. All right, project steps. Step 1. Sundar Toth is the Senior Director of the Connecticut Field Office for Enviro Energy, an industrial company that manufactures energy-producing equipment. He has created a worksheet summarizing the revenue and expenses for the first 3 quarters of the year. He asks for your help in determining what the Connecticut office needs to do to meet its targeted profit goals in the 4th quarter. Go to the budget summary worksheet. So when you open up projects in Excel, you're going to see this documentation page first. It's very important that you switch away from the documentation tab that you see here. You don't want to change anything. And if you do end up changing something, either undo it or start with a fresh start file to be safe. Now let's go ahead and enable editing, and we'll do a quick tour of Excel here. So just like with Word and PowerPoint, you have the quick access toolbar. In the upper left window, you have your title bar, you have your search bar, your Microsoft account, your minimize, maximize, restore down, and close buttons. You have your ribbon. This is what's called the name box, and this is your formula bar. This is your spreadsheet, or again, your worksheet. Now, you'll notice with the tabs, you can have multiple spreadsheets or worksheets. Here's another term you've probably come across. This entire Excel file is what's called your workbook. So again, your worksheet is the individual spreadsheet. Your workbook is the entire Excel file. And then of course, at the bottom here, you have your status bar with your different view options along with the zoom slider. Now, when I walked through the PowerPoint 3 project, I gave a crash course on worksheets. Let's revisit what I talked about since we're now working in Excel here. You can see that this worksheet consists of lettered columns and numbered rows. These columns and rows intersect to give you cells. Now, the green border you see here in cell A1, as indicated in the name box here, This green border indicates that you are currently in the active cell. Now, every cell has an address or a cell reference, much like finding a friend's place or a business. So for example, right now I'm in cell A1 and now I'm in cell G1, as you can see here in the name box. Cells can consist of text or values. You can see E1 here. This is text. And notice it's aligned to the left by default. Of course, you can change where the text appears, whether it's aligned to the left, centered, or aligned to the right, and whatnot. Here in G1, we have a value, and in this case, it's a number. If I go down to G15, this is a formula. So values can consist of numbers, formulas, and the third item, functions, as you will see later. Functions are basically predefined formulas. And with that, let's go ahead and begin with our first step. Remember, you always have the pause button if you need a break. Okay, looking again at step 1 here. Go to the budget summary worksheet, cut the worksheet title from cell I1 and paste it in cell A1 to display the title in its expected location. So let's take a look here. And you can see that the title is in cell I1. And again, they're asking us to cut the worksheet title and paste it into cell A1. Notice the Home tab clipboard group. It's pretty much the same from what you've seen in Word and PowerPoint. Let's go ahead and cut, or Control X. Notice how Enviro Energy doesn't just disappear. This rotating border that you see indicates that an action is being performed on this cell. Now to paste, I just click on cell A1 as indicated here in the instructions, and I'll go ahead and click paste in the Home tab clipboard group. I can also hit Control V on the keyboard, and you'll see how Enviro Energy is now in cell A1. So that takes care of step 1. Let's go to step 2. In cell E1, add the text number of so that the complete text appears as number of salespeople and more clearly identifies the value in cell G1. Now, when I click on a cell, I can just start typing right away if I want to. This is what's called ready mode here. But if I have some existing text and I need to add something to the cell, in this case with cell E1, I can double click into cell E1, which puts me in edit mode, as you can see here in the status bar. Now I can just type number of, just like that, as indicated in the instructions here. And when I'm done, I can click on the check mark or hit the enter key. And that takes me back to ready mode. Now, if I hit the enter key on my keyboard, I will move down to cell E2. But if I hit the check mark, I'm still in E1, as you can see here with the green border. Again, E1 is currently the active cell. Don't forget to save, and we'll continue on to the next step. Onward. Step 3, enter quarter 1 in cell B17 and quarter 3 in cell D17. So let's go to cell B17. And by the way, let's say you don't have a whole lot of real estate here and I can't see cell B17 right away. Let me show you another trick. I can go into the name box and type B17, and it's going to take me directly to cell B17. Now here I'm being asked to type in quarter 1, and you can see how I can just start typing right away in ready mode. And then I will tab my way over to D17, where again in ready mode I could just type quarter 3 just like that. Remember, if I hit the enter key, it's going to move me down to the next active cell. Step 4, in cell G18, enter a formula without a function that subtracts the target revenue, that's cell F18, from the year-to-date revenue, cell E18, to determine how much revenue the field office needs to earn in quarter 4 to reach its target for the year. So let's back up for a second. They're asking us to go to cell G18 here. Okay, this is the variance for revenue. So where people start getting into trouble with Excel is taking the math and applying it in a way that Excel understands. Additionally, when you're looking at different cell references, especially when you're working with formulas, again, where folks get into trouble is that you have to understand what these cell references represent and what exactly is going on with the formula. Now, if we go back and look at the instructions here, we're being asked to subtract the target revenue from the year-to-date revenue. And if you recall word problems, I know this just turned into math class, you're basically being asked to subtract, it's going to be E18 minus F18. Okay, I hope that makes some sense. Now we have to enter it in a way that Excel is going to understand. All right, so whenever you're dealing with formulas in Excel, here in cell G18, whenever you're dealing with formulas, you always have to start with the equal sign. And now we can type E18, or we can click on E18, and then we will enter a minus to subtract. So when it comes to arithmetic operators, plus means you're adding, minus means you're subtracting. Now, when it comes to multiplication, you're using an asterisk, and then with division, it's a forward slash. All right, let's go ahead and complete this formula. I can either type in F18 or I can click on F18. Now, you'll notice that there are different colors here for E18 and F18. These colors is what's called the range finder. Now, why would you have different colors for different cells? And if you're thinking it's to make sure that you're choosing the right cells, you are absolutely correct. You have the freedom to type in formulas, but whenever you're typing, mistakes can happen. So the rangefinder is there to let you know, hey, these are the cells you're working with here. Is this what you really want? Now, to complete the formula, I'm going to hit enter. And you'll see this value here, but it's enclosed in parentheses. And the parentheses tell you that this is a negative number. Now, let's quickly go back and double check the final figure here. And if you need to, you can zoom in to see it. And you'll know that you entered the right formula if it matches up with the final figure. Oftentimes, I will see students flip it the other way around and put in F18 minus E18. But remember, you're subtracting F18 from E18 as indicated in the instructions. So again, just to show you, F18 is being subtracted from E18. All right, moving right along. Step 5. Sundar wants to calculate the gross margin for quarters 1 through 3 and the year to date. Provide this information as follows. Part A. In cell B20, enter a formula without a function that divides the gross profit for quarter 1, that's indicated by cell B19, by the revenue in quarter 1 as indicated in cell B18. So let's go to B20 here. Okay, this is cell B20. And again, we are entering a formula. So we need to start with the equal sign. and it's going to be B19 divided by B18. So again, I can type in B19. Remember, with the arithmetic operators, divide is /, and then there's B18. I'll go ahead and hit enter, and you'll notice that this cell is already formatted as a percentage with 1 decimal place. By the way, when you look at the worksheet, you'll notice that what you see in cell B20 in the worksheet is different from what's in the formula bar, okay? Remember, with worksheets, you can format them to look however you want them to look. Part B, fill the range C20 to E20 with the formula in cell B20 to find the gross margin for quarters 2 and 3 and for the year to date. So there's a new term here, range. What is that? A range is a group of adjacent cells, and it's indicated with the first cell in the group. The colon is the separator, and then you have the last cell. So in other words, C20 to E20 is this. Okay, and did you notice how I clicked and dragged with this white cross cursor? Okay, we use this to select. So this is the range C20 to E20. Now in the name box, it only tells you the first cell. And by the way, if you want to select the range C20 to E20 using the name box, watch what I type here. C20 colon E20. I hit enter. There's the range. Okay, but in this case, we are being asked to fill the range with the formula in cell B20. Now, how do we do that? If I go to the lower right corner of cell B20, notice how my cursor changes to this plus symbol. This on the bottom right is what's called the fill handle, and now I can click and drag to E20 to copy the formula over. Now, if you want to convince yourself, check this out. C20, notice the formula, C19 divided by C18, and then you'll see D19 divided by D18, and E19 divided by E18. Okay, so why is that possible? Well, by default, your cell reference is what's called a relative reference. So in other words, when you copy a formula like you just saw, the cell reference changes relative to its location. So in other words, in cell B20, you have B19 divided by B18, but by copying the formula over to C20, that also changes the cell references to C19 and C18. Now, there are times where you don't want the cell reference to change, and it's called using an absolute reference. You'll see this later on. All right, how are we doing, folks? If you need a break, you always have that pause button. Okay, let's go ahead and continue. And by the way, don't forget to save your progress. Okay, so make sure you hit the save button. And let's continue here. Step 6. Sundar needs to add the sales for each energy product to calculate the year-to-date sales. Provide this information as follows. Part A, in cell E5, enter a formula that uses the sum function to total the 3/4 of gas generator sales, and that's the range B5 to D5. So remember what I talked about earlier. Your cells consisting of values, they can be numbers, they can be formulas, or in this case, they can be functions, which are predefined formulas. Now, there are several ways to use the sum function. I'll just show you the quickest and easiest by typing. So let's go to cell E5 here. So cell E5, we are asked to sum up the quarterly sales of gas generators, as you can see represented here from B5 to D5. To add a function, again, we start with the equal sign because it is a formula. I'm going to type in sum. Notice how Excel tries to autofill for me, and I need to open a parentheses. This is what's called the syntax of the function. This is a language that Excel understands. And you'll notice in the tooltip here, you see what are called arguments. Number 1, comma, number 2, comma, number 3, comma, and so forth. This is where you can enter in your cell references, but in this case, it's going to be a range, and I can use what's called the point and click method. I could also type in B5 to D5. So B5 to D5 is my argument here. So in other words, this function is going to add up all of the values in the range. So it's going to be B5 plus C5 plus D5. When I'm ready, go ahead and hit enter, and you'll see my year-to-date total. Now in part B, use the fill handle to fill the range E6 to E8 with the formula in cell E5 to find the year-to-date sales for the other 3 regions. So as before, with cell E5, grab the lower right corner, otherwise known as the fill handle, and drag down to E8. Notice here how in E9 the total is automatically updated, and you'll see that's also a sum function from E5 to E8. Step 7. In cell F5, enter the value 6 million without the commas to provide the targeted annual sales amount for gas generators. So in F5, we're entering 6 million without the commas. So in other words, 6 followed by 6 zeros. Notice the formatting is already applied for you. Step 8, Sundar wants to determine how much revenue each energy product needs to generate in quarter 4 to reach its target for the year. Enter this information as follows. Part A, in cell G5, enter a formula without a function that subtracts the target sales for gas generators, that's represented by cell F5, from its year-to-date sales, cell E5, to find the amount of gas generators the company needs to sell to meet its target. So just like before, okay, don't fall for this. It's E5 minus F5. All right, so let's go to cell G5. Again, you need to start with an equal sign. And it's E5 minus F5. And there you go. Let's take a moment to double check the final figure here. Okay, if we zoom right on in. Again, the variance in G5 is a negative value. Part B, copy the formula in cell G5 and then paste it in the range G6 to G9 to find the variances for the other energy products and for the total. So again, with G5, grab the fill handle in the lower right corner, and we'll stop at G9. Step 9. Sundar is interested in how much revenue each of the 22 salespeople generates on average in each quarter and for the year to date. Find this information as follows. In part A, edit cell B10, so in other words, double click into cell B10, to include a formula without a function that divides the total energy sales in quarter 1, cell B9, by the number of salespeople, cell G1. Don't change the reference to cell G1 that is already there. So what are they talking about? Okay, let's look at B10 here. So if we look at B10, you'll see that this reference has a $sign in front of both the letter and the number. This is what's called an absolute reference, and this is what I mentioned earlier. If you don't want a cell reference to change when you're copying formulas, you want to create what's called an absolute reference, and all it is, you're just putting a $sign in front of both the column and the row. So for example, in this case, with cell G1, if I want an absolute reference, it's going to be $G, $1. All right, so let me show you how this all works. Again, we're being asked to edit this formula, divide the total energy sales in quarter one, cell B9, by the number of salespeople, cell G1. So I need to go in, double click into edit mode, and I just need to enter in B9 and then divide it by. Again, we don't want to change the absolute reference to G1, and you'll see why in a moment. Because in part B, we're being asked to fill in the range C10 to E10 with the formula in cell B10. Okay, so again, grab the fill handle here in B10, and we're going to copy to E10. Now, let me show you what happened. Okay, so in B10, you have B9 divided by G1. Now, check this out. C10, look at this. C9, but in the denominator, it's still G1. And this makes sense because you're dividing by the number of salespeople. If you didn't have the dollar signs, right? If you didn't have the dollar signs, you're going to end up dividing by 0 because there's nothing over in H1 or I1, and you're going to end up with an error with the formulas. Okay, check this out. D10, D9 divided by G1, and then finally in E10, E9 divided by G1. So that is how relative and absolute references work in Excel. There's a third kind of reference called a mixed reference, where you have a dollar sign either in front of the letter or in front of the number. Now, if you are typing out a formula, let me show you real quick. So for example, let's say it's G1, but you need to make it an absolute reference. You can hit the F4 key, and it will automatically put the dollar signs in front of the letter and the number, just like that. All right, how are we doing, folks? If you need a break, you do have that pause button. And I know that this might be a learning curve, so feel free to pause right here, go back, rewind, do what you need to do. All right, step 10. Sundar also needs to calculate the operating margin, which is the ratio of operating profit or loss, so profit or loss, to revenue, and indicates how much the office makes after paying for expenses. Calculate the operating margin as follows. Part A, in cell B15, enter a formula without a function that divides the operating profit or loss in quarter one, that's indicated by cell B14, by the revenue from quarter one, indicated by cell B18. So in other words, B14 divided by B18, you're going to enter this into cell B15. So here's cell B15, the operating margin. Again, you need to begin with an equal sign. B14 divided by B18. And there you go. So your operating margin is 44%. And once again, you're going to use the fill handle to fill in the range C15 to E15 with the formula in cell B15 to find the operating margin for quarters 2 and 3 and for the year to date. So easy enough, grab the fill handle, copy over to E15. So again, grab the fill handle in cell B15 and then copy over to E15. By the way, real quick, if you make a mistake, you always have that undo button in the quick access toolbar. You could also Control Z. One other thing to note, if you have content in other cells and you use the fill handle, Excel will be more than happy to overwrite things. So again, if you make a mistake, let's say you accidentally end up doing this, right? You end up doing this, you always have undo. Okay, so I just want to show you that. Step 11, Sundar wants to include a visualization of the total year-to-date sales separated by region. Insert a chart to provide this visualization as follows. Part A, create a donut chart based on the non-adjacent ranges A4 to A8, and E4 to E8. So in other words, we need to select the range A4 to A8 and then E4 to E8. All right, so let's take a look here. So I need to start with the range A4 to A8. Notice the white cross cursor. Okay, now to select a non-adjacent range, I need to hold down the control key, and now I'm going to select E4 to E8. Okay, so why is this important? Because you'll see that I have energy sales year to date, I have my categories, and I have the raw data. Now with this, I'm being asked to create a donut chart. And to create a donut chart, we go to the Insert tab, Charts group, and we're looking for a donut chart. Insert pie or donut chart, and it's just a matter of choosing the donut chart. By the way, notice the live preview. I know it's kind of hidden in the background, so I'll just choose donut chart so you can see. If your chart does not look like this, okay, if your chart does not look like this, go back, undo, make sure that you've selected the correct ranges here. And then again, Insert tab, Charts group, Insert pie or donut chart, choose donut. And once again, when you click into the chart, you have chart design and format tabs. Hopefully this is familiar coming from PowerPoint 3 project. Let's see what we're being asked to do here. Part B, enter total year-to-date sales by energy type as the chart title. So I'll go ahead and triple click into the chart title, and I will type total year-to-date sales. Let's double check my typing here. Sales by energy type. Once you're done, click off the chart title. Part C, resize and reposition the chart so its upper left corner is in cell I4 and its bottom right corner is in cell L18. So let's pick up this chart. Notice the four-headed arrow here. Let's pick up this chart. So the top left is within cell I4, and I'll need to scroll a little bit here. You can also zoom out if you need to. Oops, I went too far. And then the bottom right corner is in L18. So right now I'm in M18. I just need to move this over to L18. And then finally apply style 4 to the chart. Two ways to do this. You have the chart design tab, chart styles group. You can also click on the button here for chart style. So notice the three buttons. You have chart elements, chart styles, chart filters. We can click on chart styles and then choose style 4. Use the tooltips to help you out. Right there's style 4. You can also go in the chart design tab, chart styles, and then choose style 4. And then I'll go ahead and close chart styles. Step 12, hide the grid lines for the budget summary worksheet to make it easier to read. Now for this, we go to the page layout tab. First I need to click off the chart. There we go. Page layout tab, sheet options, uncheck view in the grid lines category. There you go. Let's go ahead and save. Your workbook should look like the final figures on the following pages. Save your changes, close the workbook, and then exit Excel. Follow the directions on the website to submit your completed project. Remember, workbook means your Excel file as a whole. So let's go ahead and save. Remember, if you have autosave turned on, regardless, you do need to close completely out of Excel. And at this point, we can go ahead and submit our work for grading. Go back, do your due diligence, double check things, and I'll see you on the other side. All right, let's get the moment of truth here. And I will go ahead and submit my project file. We'll click submit. Now, your graded summary report is going to show up as a worksheet. And there you go, 100 out of 100. As before, if you don't score 100 on your first attempt, go back through, see what you missed. Make sure that you are editing your project file and not your report. And with that, good luck with Excel 1 project. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, folks.